know that most of the big industrials got crushed during the third quarter. But ever since it ended, these stocks have been roaring, including Cramer fave PPG, the specialty chemical maker that produces all kinds of proprietary paints and, most importantly, coatings. Now, there's been a changing of the guard at PPG as the company's bankable long-term CEO, Chuck Bunch, stepped down recently to be replaced by Michael McGarry. He's the former chief operating officer and a 34-year PPG veteran. If anyone was worried this company would miss a step during the leadership transition, Mr. McGarry put those fears to rest when PPG reported a solid quarter back on October 15th. Since then, the stock's been flying. It's up more than 6% in the last 3 weeks. And though it's pulled back over the last couple of days, I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out to be simply a pause before the stock resumes its upward trajectory. Yesterday, I got a chance to check in with Michael McGarry, PPG's new president and CEO. Take a look. Mr. McGarry, I'm so glad you're on the show, but I've got to start out with the obvious question, which is, do you see Chuck Bunch, and how is your administration different from his? Because he was probably one of our absolutely most popular CEOs ever to come on Mad Money.
Well, I see Chuck on a regular basis. Obviously, this transition's been underway for quite some time. And, you know, it's big shoes to fill, but we have a great management team at PPG, and we're certainly looking forward.
And it's not like you just came to PPG, right?
No, 34 years. I've seen about every aspect of the business. I've been in Europe. I've been in Asia. And it's been a great experience so far. And I've been working with Chuck for the last 9 years. So it's been great.
Well, let's start with Europe and Asia, because in your first conference call, I detected some positives about Europe, and going into the end of the quarter, detected some positives about China. Can you fill us in on how things are going since then?
Sure, Jim. I mean, if you look at Europe, car builds continue to accelerate, and what makes me really excited is that Southern Europe is really starting to get healthier faster. Obviously coming off a low base, but doing pretty well. And Germany continues to do well. UK, you know, obviously France is the concern. When you shift over to China, you know, we saw a little bit of slowdown midway through the third quarter, but we saw a little bit of acceleration in September. And as I said on my call, October, you know, started out pretty good. And we're anticipating flat to up in China in the fourth quarter.
Now, a lot of what seemed to happen in China in October is they reduced that tax on small engines. Are those cars necessarily cars that you are involved with coatings?
Jim, I tell people if it moves, we paint it. If it doesn't move, we paint it. We're very strong all across China, and all the manufacturers. Those small cars are part of our business as well as the big cars. So we're somewhat agnostic in that regard, but overall, the China market, we are very bullish on.
Okay, Michael, one of the things that struck me was there was this sell-off in PPG that I regard as somewhat unnatural, and because it was harder than the others, even though your consistency is far greater than most of the industrials I deal with. I noticed that you deployed $150 million in cash for the quarter for a purchase of 1.5 million shares, and that was far more than usual, actually. Was that because you realized that the stock kind of went down for no reason?
No, Jim, we're really engaged in buying back stock on a regular basis. As you know, we'd rather do acquisitions first. But in this case, we've been buying back stock. We narrowed up the range. We said we'd return $1.5 to $2.5 billion back to our shareholders in either acquisitions or buybacks. We've narrowed that up to $2 to $2.5 billion over the 2015-2016 timeframe. So, you know, we're going to continue to be engaged, but acquisitions is our first choice.
You used a term on your most recent conference call about painting season. And I started thinking, you know, I was talking to some retailers today who are just dying because it's so warm and nice throughout the country. Is it possible that painting season can be elongated by the fact that it's beautiful in much of the United States right now?
Well, it's certainly possible, Jim. We find that the painters always try to shift their work from outside to inside as they transition from the third quarter to the fourth quarter. But by and large, you know, the paint season is starting to wind down, but we'll be happy to take all the business that we see out there.
Now, I noticed you had a terrific slide in your most recent report talking about room for expansion without cannibalization. I look at where you have stores. It seems like west of the Mississippi, you're just not nearly as stocked, and that there's plenty of room to add new stores.
Oh, there's plenty of room in the U.S. There's plenty of room in Mexico. We continue to grow organically in our store count in Canada, the U.S., Mexico. So we're excited about our business.
You also seem to be somewhat positive about an area that I know some of the banks are concerned about for non-residential construction. You think construction, architectural construction, doing a little better in this country?
Jim, we see a solid continued construction recovery. I think this is very beneficial, that it's gradual. It's not a huge spike up. Our glass business continues to improve quarter over quarter. and I think this is good for the economy.
And aerospace just remains consistently strong for you, doesn't it?
Aerospace has been a great business for us. It continues to gain share, and then the most recent announcement I'm sure you saw with the C919 in China. We have the transparencies, or that's a fancy word for windshields on that plane. We have the paint, we have the sealants. So we continue to do well in the aerospace market, and it's been good for us.
Well, it sounds like that everything is in good hands at PPG. Certainly give Chuck our regards, and thank you so much, Michael McGarry, President and CEO of PPG. Good to see you, sir. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate the invite. Consistency is what we want from industrials, and that's what PPG gives us. Mad Money's back after the break. Booyah! Jim Cramer here from Mad Money. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube. Click here to subscribe and get the jump on my exclusives with CEOs, plus market news, investing advice, and a whole lot more.